Before borders, before colonies, before history was written by others, there was a sound so powerful. It rolled across hills and forests, echoed through valleys, and settled deep into memory. KIRIJI. It was not thunder from the sky. It was the sound of brothers turning against brothers. This is the story of the KIRIJI War. In the land we now call southwestern Nigeria, among ancient hills and fertile valleys, a civil war once raged with a fury that reshaped an entire people. For 16 long years, from 1877 to 1893, Yorubaland was consumed by one of the longest and most complex conflicts in its history. When the guns finally fell silent, the land was changed, and so were its people. Long before the first cannon fired, the Yoruba world was vast and diverse, a civilization of many cities, each proud, each independent, yet bound together by language, ancestry, and belief. Great centers such as Oyo, Ife, Ibadan, Ijesha, Egba, and Ekiti thrived as hubs of culture, trade, and power. For generations, balance was maintained through shared customs, mutual respect, and an understanding that no single city ruled all. At the heart of this balance once stood the Oyo Empire. The Oyo Empire was more than a kingdom. It was an organizing force, political, military, and cultural. Through diplomacy and strength, it kept Yorubaland connected. But empires like Caesars rise and eventually fall. In the early 19th century, Oyo began to weaken. Internal rivalries, fractured leadership, succession disputes eroded authority. External pressures strained its defenses. Slowly, power slipped away, and when Oyo finally collapsed, it left behind a silence filled with uncertainty. That silence created a vacuum, and in that vacuum, new ambitions awakened. From the ruins of the old order rose Ibadan. Ibadan was not founded by ancient royalty, it was forged in war. A city built by warriors, refugees, and survivors of earlier conflicts. Strength, not ancestry, became its currency. Ibadan grew rapidly, adding itself into a formidable military power. Its war chiefs commanded armies, its soldiers marched outward, tribute was demanded, allegiance was enforced. For many western Yoruba towns, Ibadan became a shield, but for the eastern communities, Ekiti, Ijesha, Akoko, Ibadan became a burden. These eastern towns were not weak, they were ancient, proud, and deeply rooted in independence. Yet they were compelled to pay tribute, to supply soldiers, and to submit to Ibadan's authority. Resentment did not erupt overnight. It grew slowly, quietly, and patiently, passed from elders to youth, from memory to memory, until patience gave way to resolve. That resolve became action. Eastern leaders gathered, old rivalries were laid aside, boundaries that once divided were forgotten. Together, they formed a confederation known as the Ekiti Parapor, the United People. Their declaration was simple: enough submission, enough tribute, enough domination. War became inevitable. What followed was not a war of the past, but a war of transition. This was not fought with spears alone. Imported rifles arrived, long-range cannons thundered, gunpowder filled the air. Through contact with Europeans and returning ex-slaves from Sierra Leone and Brazil, the Yoruba had learned modern methods of warfare. The deafening echo of artillery fire rolling across the hills gave the conflict its name, KIRIJI. A sound so fierce, it seemed to tear the land apart. Ibadan's warriors were seasoned, disciplined, and relentless. They had built their reputation on victory, but the Ekiti Parapor possessed something different: unity. Under leaders such as Ogedengbe of Ilesha and other experienced commanders, they resisted with strategy, coordination, and endurance. Battles raged in the forests, across hills, and along ancient paths. Neither side could claim a decisive victory. The war dragged on, year after year. Villages were abandoned, trade routes collapsed, markets fell silent, farms returned to bush. Children were born into war and grew old enough to fight in it. Peace became a distant memory, spoken of as something belonging to another time. By the late 1880s, the prolonged conflict attracted the attention of a distant power. The British, already established in Lagos, they were steadily expanding inland, seeking control, order, and influence. The KIRIJI War disrupted trade, but more importantly, it presented opportunity. They arrived as mediators, offering peace, but peace came with a price. British involvement gradually altered the course of the war, not through battle, but through pressure and negotiation. Exhausted by years of fighting, both sides began to listen. In 1893, after 16 years of bloodshed, a treaty was signed. The cannons fell silent. Warriors returned home to burned villages, to broken walls, to memories that will never fade. Yet, the greatest loss was not measured in ruins. Yorubaland had crossed a threshold. What began as a struggle for autonomy ended with the loss of sovereignty. Colonial administration followed. Power shifted quietly. Kings became ceremonial. War chiefs faded into history. The age of self-rule gave way to foreign control. The KIRIJI War was more than a battle over land or pride. It was a crucible, a painful lesson etched into memory.